I take nothing for granted in this, and I try to learn and reinvent myself maybe as well.
Welcome to the She Clicks Women in Photography podcast. I'm Angela Nicholson, and I'm the founder of She Clicks, which is a community for female photographers. In these podcasts, I talk with women in the photographic industry to hear about their experiences, what drives them, and how they got to where they are now. In this episode, I speak with Elke Vogelsang, a magazine and commercial photographer based in Germany who specialises in animal portraits and is particularly known for her amazing images of dogs. She's also a Fujifilm ambassador. Hi Elke, thanks so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. I was thinking about the last time I saw you in person, and I'm pretty sure it was at Photokina, the trade show in 2018, and you were talking on a huge stage. You were talking about your photography, and I remember going around to the side of the stage a little bit and photographing towards the audience because your images were making everybody smile so much. And that must be a really nice thing to be able to do.
Yes, absolutely. That's one of the best things in the job, really. The community of really, really friendly people from all over the world, also on social media, who just enjoy dogs and photography. That's something I enjoy tremendously.
I was talking to someone the other day and they said whenever they're out taking photographs, if they ask someone if they can photograph their dog, they've never been refused. But if you say to someone in the street, can I take a photograph of you? They sometimes say no. Sometimes they say yes. But everybody loves to have a photograph of their dog.
Yes, sure. It's a family member. A dog is a family member, and dogs don't care how they look in a picture, but people do, yes. And it's definitely far easier to please a dog with pictures than a human being. And everybody wants pictures of their dogs. Yeah, they want to have something like a memory and something, a keepsake.
Yeah, and I've noticed as well that if you're photographing a person and after a while, if they're not a regular model, they can get a bit kind of bored of the event and sort of say, well, that's it now. But if an owner sees you taking a photograph of their dog, they'll have a look, and if they think you haven't quite got what they want, or, if this, you should see him from this side, or he does this great trick, they're really happy for you to take more pictures, which must be a real bonus for you sometimes.
Yes. Every dog I meet is new to me, and every dog is so very, very different. And I need the owner to tell me as well what they think is special about the dog, because it might be something totally different from what I see in the dog. And I love to meet my models twice at least, because in the first session, I get to know them. And in the second session, I already have an idea what I can do with that dog. And the great thing about dog photography is that you've got these really, really different personalities. And that one dog might be shy, but extremely cute. And another dog might be super energetic, but show you the most expressive faces. And so I love to meet these different characters, try to find their speciality, their special face or whatever. It's super, super interesting. Sometimes it is very different from what the owner expected. And then, of course, at the end of the session or during the session, I always ask the owner as well what they find special and if the dog knows some tricks. And then we might have other ideas again.
Oh, that's a really nice idea. Our dog's got a special trick. He can pick 2 balls up at once, and he's so proud of himself, but not nearly as proud as we are. And your efforts to get to know the dogs are really clear because the character really comes through from their pictures. It's something I find, I instantly recognise one of your images. And I think that's a really, really clever thing that's obviously taking you quite some time to accomplish. But I wonder if we could kind of wind back a little bit, because like quite a few photographers that I know, you went through a career change, didn't you? You went from being a translator, I think, and a hobbyist photographer to being a part-time photographer in, I think you said 2011, and then you took up full-time photography in 2015. Did you actually make a conscious decision to switch from being a hobbyist to being a professional photographer? Or was it something you kind of migrated into?
I'm not a very spontaneous person. The fact that I switched jobs is already quite a thing for me, because I studied something which I thought was quite secure. I was a technical translator for English and German, and that's not a very creative thing, but I thought this is something that I can earn some money with. And I loved photography always, but I only took snapshots. But with my first dog, I tried to become a better photographer. And yeah, then we had a very, very stressful time with sick family members. And I decided more or less to change my life a little bit, to make it more interesting, or to have something like creativity in my life. And that's when I started taking more pictures. And later on, more and more people asked me if I could photograph their dog too. So I registered a business as a photographer, which was quite a courageous step for me in those days. Nowadays, I'm much more courageous. And yeah, I never thought that it would turn out the way it did. That was definitely maybe a dream, but I never thought I would work as a full-time photographer. That was something that happened along the way. And because I just put lots and lots of time and effort into this, because it was so much fun and I enjoyed it so much.
Was it something about discovering or the fragility of life that made you want to do something that really made you happy and excited and to be creative?
Yes, I had quite a lot of responsibilities. We had my mother-in-law living with us. She suffered from dementia, and that's something that really occupies a lot of time during the day. And then my husband got sick, so that was very, very, very stressful. And photography was something that distracted me a bit from this, from thinking too much about sick relatives.
So really, initially, it was very much you were going to continue as a hobbyist photographer, but it was a distraction that helped you sort of come to terms with things or get an escape from bad things that were happening.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And because I enjoyed photography so much, I wanted to spend as much time as possible with photography. So I was in the very, very lucky position to have a first job as a technical translator, as a freelance technical translator, which I could step by step erase and switch fully, slowly but fully, to photography. It took me actually 7 years to say I'm a full-time, I work only as a photographer now.
Okay. Yeah, I think sometimes there is a perception that people go from, one day to the next. One day they're working in one job and the next day they've switched to something completely different. But there is a bit more of a transition involved. I think I know the answer to this question, but have you ever regretted making that change?
No, absolutely not. It is a challenging thing sometimes. I was very lucky, no, I don't think I was lucky. I did put a lot of time into it, and but I had my pictures gone viral a few years ago, and step by step I built up this business. And after a while, I was able to stop entirely everything that I didn't enjoy too much and only do what I really, really enjoyed. This is pure luxury. And you can't really take it for granted. I was in the lucky position for a few years now to work fully as a commercial and editorial photographer and just taking pictures for my licensing archive. And yeah, I think I enjoyed that very, very much. I do think that we have to adapt to new situations every 5 or 10 years, I don't know. So I take nothing for granted in this, and I try to learn and reinvent myself maybe as well.
Yeah, I think we all had a massive lesson in you never know quite what's around the corner with the pandemic. And, there were a lot of people who had to rethink things for that. I imagine that had an impact on your business as well.
Yeah, in the beginning, I was really shocked, but actually I was really lucky in that situation. I got a book contract at the beginning of the pandemic, which was, I don't know, which was a miracle, but it was really, really nice. So I got a bit distracted by writing this book. And later on, because people couldn't take images themselves because everybody was at home and nobody could meet to take new images, people bought my images. So I was actually a very lucky position during that time.
Oh, that's very fortunate. That's great. Did you ever doubt at any point that photography could become a full-time career for you?
Yes, all the time. Yes, definitely. That was, something I never really imagined. And it is difficult sometimes. You have great months and you have bad months. And sometimes there are 2 or 3 bad months, and then you start wandering again. And so it's got its ups and downs. And you have to be very, very patient in this job and just keep on going.
Do you have a mechanism that you use to try and get through those sort of tougher times?
Yes, I have loads and loads of projects I would like to finish, and I actually enjoy sometimes quieter times and just keep on working on these projects. And sometimes I also love to do something else again, because I specialize in these studio images of dogs and cats, and I do this for quite a few years now. And so after a while, you just want to do something different again. So here in my studio, I take pictures for myself and I try out things, and I have projects. Doesn't always mean that they will see the day of light. I just do that for myself, maybe. But I also write articles, for example. So I love languages, and so if it's really quiet and I need a bit of a break from photography, and I learn languages. Currently, I try to brush up my Spanish, and then to integrate that into my business as well.
Oh, useful. So you could expand out, sell elsewhere.
Yes, exactly. So dream is to go to Spain and give workshops there next year.
Oh, amazing. That would be fantastic. Your dogs are Spanish, aren't they?
Yes, but they don't speak Spanish.
They're not a great help.
Neither in German nor in Spanish.
I know that problem. Very familiar. Are you the sort of person that maps out your career? You know, did you sort of think through what you wanted to achieve in the first couple of years and have a clear plan, or did you evolve as you went along?
I do have my plans. I love plans and I love lists. I make lists and I try to achieve whatever I put on that list at the beginning of the year. I just love that. I don't know. And when I look back, often, because I'm not the most courageous person, sometimes I achieved these goals, and sometimes even more sometimes. And so that's something that I enjoy later on. And sometimes I look back at these lists and see that I didn't work on that topic, and maybe I do that next time. So I do try to have a bit of a structure, try to have a bit of a plan, but without cancelling any flexibility and being spontaneous.
When you were first starting out, how did you actually find your first clients, or did they come to you?
The very first clients were friends of mine. Actually, the first half year or the first year, it was only people I know and friends, and it was really, really quiet. So it took a while until I got booked by other people. And that was through my website, and because I posted my pictures on Facebook. And mostly it was actually lots of people photography as well.
Oh.
And the first 3 years were quite quiet, but then it gradually took on.
So you have got involved with other genres of photography. It hasn't always been cats and dogs?
Yeah, I think specialization is a great thing to know, so people know that when they are looking for pictures like the ones I do, they come to me because I show these pictures over and over again. And if they find too many subjects on your website, they might not think that you're the guy or the woman for that particular genre. But that's easy to say when you don't make a living from photography. Then it is quite handy to have several sources of income or different subjects to photograph, because with dogs only, it would have taken much longer for me to make a living from photography, I guess.
Oh, surely cats are harder to photograph than dogs, aren't they?
Yes. If cats don't want to cooperate, that's it. You can go home. I love cats. I think they're really, really cool. But it's, for example, far easier to photograph young cats who are still very playful. An elderly cat might not be interested in anything, not in plays, not in treats, and they just don't just sit for your pictures. So I work with family cats usually. I go to their houses and photograph them in their surrounding, and I usually choose cats who are not afraid of strangers, of course, because a cat who hides behind the couch when somebody visits is not a good subject. You won't make them act for your camera if they don't want to. And so, yeah, I have some treats as well, but it's more, cats prefer often enough action and a play, to hunt a feather or something like that. And a dog, you can tell a dog to just sit and, look at the camera. And a cat always needs some bribery. I use bribery for the dogs as well, of course.
Yes. And you photographed your dogs a lot. They must be some of the most widely recognised dogs, but do you always sort of feel a joy when you go to photograph them, or is it nice to have that variety, photographing other people's dogs as well?
Oh, I love having the variety. My own dogs love being photographed, and all three of them were so very, very different that I had a dog. So I had 3 dogs. Nowadays it's 2 dogs, but they were so different in character that I could choose. And because I knew that what the noodles would enjoy was probably not for Scout, and something that Noodles was too energetic and too excited about would be a great job for Scout, for example. And so I had these 3 dogs, and they are great, great subjects. But nowadays they're seniors. Scout is nearly 15 years old.
Oh, wow.
And that's a huge difference. So she still loves to pose for the camera, but she would like to have a treat immediately. And she's a bit like a stubborn senior now. And so if she doesn't want to do any tricks, I don't make her do tricks. They have to enjoy making tricks. And to meet these different only is something I enjoy very, very much. So nowadays I hardly take images of my own 2 dogs, and only photograph other people's dogs. And I have thousands of pictures of my own dogs.
You never get bored of them though, do you?
My dogs are the best models, of course.
Of course. Now, you've been a Fujifilm ambassador, or an ex-photographer as they call them, for quite a few years now. And how did that originally come about?
I put all my courage together and went up to Fujifilm Germany on Photokina in, I think it might have been, oh no, I can't remember, 2016 is a bit late, I don't know. And I showed them what I had achieved and talked to one of them. And usually it might maybe not be the best practice because they're very, very busy at these photography fairs. But they somehow, contacted me a few weeks later and asked me if I would like to be a Fujifilm ex-photographer.
Oh, it's as straightforward as that.
Yes. I'm not sure it's the best practice. I don't know how they choose the people, but I was just courageous and went up. I thought I have to do something to make my dream come true in this business.
Yeah. At that time, did you have an Instagram presence?
Yes, but when my pictures went viral in 2014 and 15, I hardly ever stated my Instagram account. I usually just handed out my Facebook and my website. Nowadays, well, I would have had far more followers on Instagram if I had stated my Instagram site account in those days. But it was also quite handy because I always stated my website. My website is all over the place now, and whatever happens to Facebook and Instagram, it will always be your website.
That's a good point, because you've got quite an extensive gallery of images on your website.
Yeah, I should update that a little bit, but yes, I think my website is the most important thing. Sure, I have lots of followers on Instagram, and that's super handy and it's fun. But I think the website is super important.
Is there a difference, perhaps? I mean, it's very nice to have followers on social media, and you get some great comments and people love your images. But do you find most business comes through your website rather than the Instagram account?
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm not entirely sure. I do think so because of what I said. I always stated my website, and my images are all over the internet, and people find them on, don't know, Pinterest, and it's usually then pinned to my website or to 500px, which is you probably know 500px. Nowadays, it might not be that important anymore, but a few years ago, it was very important. I have loads of followers on Instagram, but business-wise, I don't know. If I have lots of followers in Brazil and Argentina, for example, that doesn't really matter because nobody from Brazil or Argentina buys something. I love to talk to people from Brazil and Argentina, but when it comes to business, I get booked by the United States. I do have lots of followers from the United States as well, but it doesn't really matter if you have 200,000 followers and nobody buys anything. Then it's better you have only 100 followers, and then they're all the art directors of important companies.
And when you get booked by people in the States, do you fly out there to photograph, or are they asking you to do work in Germany?
I haven't done that yet, and I have this licensing archive, and I just sell my images, and sometimes they hire me to do shoots here in Germany. I get the products. For example, they sent me the products they want to have photographs of, and then I take the images here in Germany with my models, and the United Kingdom as well is a good client. And for the UK, for example, I did some projects here also with a video. That was super fun. And usually I do them here.
What sort of products are we talking about? Is it pet food and toys and paraphernalia?
Pet food, toys, and collars.
Oh, great. And just returning back to the idea of being an ambassador, does that put you under any extra pressure as a photographer?
No, not at all. Fujifilm Germany, or Fujifilm in general, I guess, is a really, really relaxed and cool partner. They don't put me under any pressure. They love their here in Germany. It's the Fujifilm School. I'm not sure if you have that in the UK. But I give workshops for the Fujifilm School here in Germany. And otherwise, they sometimes ask me to test cameras, and then I take images. But they're super fair and friendly, and they don't say you have to say this or that. I don't know. I feel no pressure at all. It's really cool cooperation.
Oh, that's good. And is the Fujifilm School in Germany, is that a physical school that you go along to teach events in person, or is that an online thing, or a combination?
No, that's in person. So every Fujifilm school teacher sets up his own workshops, and we present our ideas to Fujifilm, and they say, yeah, that's great, let's do that. And then, for example, I hire dogs here, and I have some premises or a field and a garden where we do that. It's a dog school, actually. I hire for this. Or when I go to a different city, sometimes Fujifilm rents a place for these workshops, and then you get paid for the day. And people book the classes. It's classes of up to 10, sometimes 12 participants. Then you take images of dogs, and there are lots of other workshops as well. People photography and landscapes, everything.
That sounds like great fun. I think it'd be amazing if you could do that in the UK. I'm sure there'd be lots of people willing to sign up to photograph dogs with you in the UK.
Yeah, it's not too expensive because it does cost something, because everything that doesn't cost anything isn't worth anything. But it's not too expensive, and you can ask all your questions, and you can meet and talk dogs and photography all day. It's super cool. And the Fujifilm fans can ask their specific questions as well, but you don't have to shoot with Fujifilm. You can join with any camera.
Nice. Sounds very nice. My final question on this section is, do you still get excited when you see your images in a magazine or an advert? I mean, I get a little buzz when I see your pictures in an advert or I recognise them. So it must be great for you still.
It is cool. Of course, after a while, you get more relaxed about it. But it is very, very cool. And sometimes there's something extra special, a cover of a book maybe, or a whole picture series. For example, in the UK lately, Digital Photographer did an article with me together, and that was really nice, a nice cooperation. I handed in the images, and we talked about the text, and we did that together. That was really, really cool. And then you have a whole article of, I don't know, I think it was 10 pages or something in Digital Photographer.
Mm-hmm.
I love especially when it's abroad somewhere. And Germany, a publication in Germany is nice as well, but I love to know that there are shelves in the UK which have my images in some magazine. It is cool, yeah. I will always get excited about that, I guess.
That's really nice. Is it partly your love of languages as well, to see what you've said appearing in different languages in different countries?
Yes, I do love to combine that, and I love to try to improve my languages. Currently, I try to write articles in Spanish. My Spanish is not that good yet, but I do work really hard on it. And lately, I had a bit of fame, if you would like to say that, in Argentina, and I got lots and lots of messages from Argentina, and now there will be an article about me, on a website, on a larger website in Argentina, and I wrote the text in Spanish. I hope they understood what I said. Yeah, but that's a little bit extra, something. It's to be able to combine different obsessions or passions is the better word.
Nice. Well, it sounds like you could have plenty of opportunity to travel at some point if you want to.
Yes, in the past I did that with the UK, and I loved it. Yeah, so I'm really, really looking forward to traveling to Spain and do a little bit of work travel there. Spain might not be as enthusiastic about photography and dogs as the UK is, unfortunately, but let's see.
We are pretty obsessive about dogs here, that's for sure. Well, now it's time for the section that we're calling 6 from SheClicks, and I've got 10 questions from some SheClicks members. I'm going to ask you to answer 6 of them. So we'll do that. If you could pick a number from 1 to 10, please.
8.
Number 8. What do you think of subject detection autofocus? Has it made your job easier? Have you tried using it?
Yes, the Fuji XH2S now has the animal eye detection focus, and I loved it. Fujifilm gave me that camera to try it out, and it is super, super handy. I loved it, and I will definitely get one of those cameras. Currently, I have my XT4, which doesn't have an animal detection focus. So I don't want to buy the next camera immediately. I try to be a bit more sustainable, and so I will one day definitely get one of those cameras. It's not that it's absolutely necessary to have that.
No. But when you did a SheClicks webinar a few years ago, you mentioned that you use single point autofocus, and there is a skill involved in keeping that in the right position, particularly over something as small as a dog's eye. So do you find that using the subject detection gives you a bit more of a freedom to think about other aspects of your photography?
Yes, that's true. When the dog runs towards you, for example, the animal eye focus keeps on the eye of the dog. Yeah, you can concentrate more on having the dog in the frame properly, and be more relaxed. And I had, for example, when a very, very fast dog ran towards me, I had every image was sharp on the eyes, and that's really, really good because dogs go up and down with their heads, and it's super difficult. They jump like kangaroos, and it's super difficult to keep up with that with the single point focusing. And the animal detection just does that for you, and that's super cool. Yeah, it's much more fun in my opinion, because I don't want to. I don't know. It's very handy when the technology sometimes takes over some tasks for you, because you have to keep in mind so many things: the right light, the right position and movement of the dog, and to get the dog's attention.
Does that make you more inclined to shoot more of those fast-moving shots then?
Yes.
Yeah. And the great thing as well, because most the cameras also have a high frame rate, so as they're lolloping along and their tongue's flailing about and their eyes are rolling around, you've got the opportunity to kind of capture a special moment, haven't you?
Well, without animal detection, I really prefer to shoot with a lower frame rate of maybe 5 images, because I would like to be able to still focus on what I'm doing. And with the animal detection, it doesn't matter anymore. You just can choose whatever frame rate. Sometimes, of course, it might not be advisable to have hundreds of images which look nearly the same. But for example, when a dog shakes its head, it's every single shot can be super interesting. And what I love to do with very high frame rates is to do some stop motion videos, for example.
What sort of things do you photograph when you're doing that? You've got some shots of dogs catching treats and stuff like that. Would you use it for that kind of thing?
For example, and shaking the head and running towards you. Or it's just a way of having little videos. It's a bit like slow motion.
So could we have another number from 1 to 10, please?
5.
Number 5. Oh, this is a fun one. During a shoot, can some owners be more of a hindrance than a help? That question is from Nadia.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Nowadays, I'm much better at handling that because now I've got years of experience. But in the beginning, when I was still a bit shy and I was nervous, that's a bit of a problem because the owner thinks he or she has to take over, and that they don't know what you're trying to achieve. And sometimes they're more hectic than the dog, they're more nervous than the dog. So you have to calm them down. And they can be a bit of a problem. But as I said, nowadays, I just tell them all the time what they should do, of course, in a polite and friendly way. But they haven't got a chance to get nervous or to try to be the director themselves, because I'm telling them more or less all the time what I would like to achieve and what I would like them to do to help to achieve it. And in the past as well, when they were too nervous, I just made them sit somewhere and wait.
I was just wondering about that. You have treats for the dog. I wondered if you had maybe biscuits and a cup of tea or something for the owners, but in a different room.
I always forget that. I'm a terrible host. I always forget to serve the coffee. I ask them if they want a coffee or a tea, and I prepare the coffee in the kitchen, and I forget about the coffee. It's always the same, because when I photograph, I would just I forget about everything else. Terrible host, absolutely terrible host.
Very focused, let's say you're very focused. So could we have another number, please?
Number 3.
Number 3. Now, do you select the dogs you photograph for campaigns, or do the owners or publishers suggest dogs to you?
For campaigns, the companies often have ideas, but I've got a catalogue of dogs which I could hire for the day, and I present this list or these dogs to my client, and they might choose, and then I have a look if those dogs are available. For larger projects, for example, sometimes you need trained dogs from film schools, and then you can't choose. And they are already very, very expensive, and you can't just say we want a Labrador and we want a Dachshund or whatever. These film schools have their dogs they work with, and you can't choose that much really in that case.
That sounds like you had to learn a whole different area of not so much photography, but, what goes on in the world of film school, and that there are dogs trained in that way. You start off as a pet photographer, and then you're going to dog film school.
Yeah, in that case, I personally never hired film schools. That was done by my clients directly, because then you work with agencies and they might hire them. And I just am the photographer, but it's very, very different from how I usually work, because when I take images of family dogs, it's very friendly and super relaxed, and the dog is the star. And when you have these larger commercial shoots for a client, you have lots of people, you have to have very, very cool dogs, which I don't know beforehand, and you have a trainer, a dog trainer, who is very, very protective of his dogs, which is very, very good, of course. But they want to be the ones who entertain the dogs, and that's difficult for me, because I know how to handle dogs, I know how to entertain them, I know how to make sure they have fun and act for my camera. And so I once had a bit of a difficult day with the trainer, because she insisted she is the one who will talk to the dog, and that was the trainer was more complicated than any dog could ever be. I appreciate that, because she was protective of her animals, which is good. But finally, we found a way that we both can do our job. Yeah, the dogs and cats were cool. They actually had cats which could sit on demand.
Oh, wow.
And that's really amazing animals they have.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that takes a bit of doing, I think, training a cat to do that. Right, so can we have another number from 1 to 10, please?
1.
Number 1. Which breed of dog have you found to be the most uncooperative? That question is from Caroline.
Uncooperative. Big herding dogs like Canine, for example. I think they're a bit misplaced in the studio, for example. These huge dogs, which usually would herd sheep somewhere in Anatolia, I don't know. And here in the studio, they just look like, what the hell is this? Why am I here? Why am I not outside on the fields? So I don't like having these dogs which look totally out of place in my studio here. And, well, I had some here and they did cooperate, but it was very different from a super excited beagle who just would love to get the food, or an Australian Shepherd. So, yeah, Kangal and Co. I don't know. They are very difficult sometimes. My favorite breeds are hunting dogs, gun dogs. For example, Spaniels and German short-haired pointers or German pointers. I love them. They are intelligent. They are energetic. But they do cooperate. They love to work with humans. And yeah, they are very expressive, very beautiful in my opinion, and they've got loads of power, but you can still tell them, sit here and look there, and yeah, those for example are my favorites. Any kind of hunting dogs who love to work with humans as well, different from the sighthounds who love to just chase hare, and I don't know. They are not used to working with humans. They just try to catch animals. That might be difficult, even though my dogs are sighthound mixes.
Okay, so could we have another number?
2.
Number 2. Some of your images are in the studio and some are outdoors. How do you decide which to go for, and do you have a preference?
In the past, when I started out as a photographer, I tremendously enjoyed to be outdoors with dogs, and I found studio photography to be terribly boring, and I imagined bored dogs on cardboards. But in the wintertime, I tried to, I couldn't be bothered to have my camera with me on dog walks because it was cold and grey, and so I tried out studio photography, and from the very first beginning, I tried to find something that I find interesting, and that was the expressions of the dogs. And yeah, when my pictures went viral, those studio images, which were a bit different because I had to be a bit more creative, I found something that I enjoyed and that was a bit different, and it struck a chord with people. And so those were the images which went viral. And so I was all of a sudden known as a studio photographer, and which I thought in the beginning, I thought that was not my thing, but I nowadays enjoy it very, very much. The studio is not for every dog. Really shy dogs, scared dogs, former stray dogs, for example, who might still be a bit scared of situations. For those dogs, the studio and atmosphere might be a bit too challenging, and I photograph these dogs out in an enclosed garden, for example. I still absolutely love outdoor photography. For years now, I have mostly shot studio photos, but I want to go outdoors again. It's time, in my opinion, to do something else again a bit, and that's why I'm currently looking for outdoor locations and really looking forward to be outdoors again with dogs. For example, what I do is with old and sick dogs, I prefer an outdoor situation, because when they're already weak and old, the studio is very, very difficult, because in the studio you only have the dog as an actor, and outdoors you can use a nice evening light and the surroundings, nature, to add to the story, to tell your story. And the dog doesn't have to be that present all the time and be, I don't know, strong for pictures. So yeah, old and sick dogs I would definitely prefer to photograph outdoors.
Is it the change in the weather or moving towards spring and having sort of been indoors all through the winter that makes you want to go outdoors, or is it just, a feeling of a shift in your photography?
Yes, both. I don't particularly like the winter here in northern Germany. It's cold and grey and wet, and outdoors, and you have to lie on the ground most of the time. And so now that it's spring,
you're ready to do it. That sounds fair enough. And so can we have the last number then, please?
9.
Number 9. Do you employ an assistant to help with some of your shoots these days?
No. I have my husband when I work with my own dogs outdoors, for example, and usually I always have the owner or a trainer. And that's enough for me, because I usually would like that the dog focuses on me and not another person, because I want to make sure the dog looks into the camera. And it's super difficult when you've got a dog, for example, who's very focused on his owner, to make sure that he forgets about the owner. And another person would be another distraction. And no, I don't really need that. And I always work with quite simple methods and simple technology. I have only one strobe. I would like to make sure that every animal in my studio feels as comfortable as possible. So I use only one strobe, which also means that I might have more work in Photoshop later on because the background is not evenly lit. But when I can make sure that every dog who comes here is happy with the situation, that's better.
I was looking at some of your photographs just the other day, and there was a series where you've got the dogs with their tongues sticking out. And you said you achieved that by holding out a yogurt pot with a little bit of yogurt in, and the dog would be licking it, and then you would pull it away. And I was just trying to imagine how you managed to do that. Were you holding it and trying to balance your camera, or did you have your husband doing it?
No, I do that. And I always have only one hand on my camera. And in the other hand, I have a treat or a toy or a squeaker. And you will hardly ever see me with both hands on my camera. Outdoors, yes, because outdoors I take images with a telelens, for example, and then I usually might have the owner to entertain the dog. But here in the studio where I'm very near to the dog, I do that myself and I use one hand on the camera.
So I don't imagine for a minute that you're standing upright or putting your camera on a tripod. So you're probably crouching down, holding the camera, holding the treat. You must have core muscles of steel and really excellent balance.
No, I often just shake my shoulder because the shoulder gets stuck. And I also had, how do you call it, impingement syndrome because my shoulder got stuck. Probably not only because of photography, but it does hurt sometimes. And I have to do some exercises for my shoulder. I'm old.
Time for more photography outside then.
Yes, exactly. To move a bit more because this impingement syndrome comes from working too much on the computer with my Wacom and edit images. That's the real problem.
Well, Elke, it's been absolutely lovely catching up with you, and I hope that maybe we'll get to see each other in person at some point in the not too distant future.
Yeah, that would be lovely. I really, really miss the UK and I would love to return and maybe visit a photography fair and see you all again.
That would be lovely. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of the She Clicks Women in Photography podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to know more about Elke, you'll find links to her social media channels and website in the show notes. I'll be back with another episode soon, so please subscribe to the show on your favourite podcast platform and tell all your friends and followers about it. You'll also find She Clicks on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and YouTube if you search for She Clicks Net. So until next time, enjoy your photography.